You are about to launch to Planet Joe. Please enter the pod and fasten the brain safety belt. This planet is intended for mature humans only. If you are the sapient type that gets offended easily, please exit the pod immediately. Enjoy your visit on Planet Joe Pod. Launching now.
How's it going, my peeps? My dear Earthlings. Welcome. Welcome to PJP. Pod number 13. How have you been, my lovelies? Hope all was well. Hope all is good. Hope you're filled with happy. And I missed you. So here we at PJP episode 13. You probably guessed it by now, by the title. Two Jokers. It's another analysis of the masterpiece, Joker. But this time, the second Joker on PJP is Adam Cartier. Many of you regular listeners know Adam by now. This is actually the first interview, the first time I'm hosting remotely. So the following is me and Adam over the internet. So we're having a nice discussion over Joker. So it's a sort of analysis of my analysis, as well as, we're just sharing some very interesting points about the movie. So, warning, if you haven't seen Joker, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Pause it. Honestly, if you haven't seen Joker by now, you should be ashamed of yourself. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, pause it, go see it, and come back. The second movie that we're kind of destroying here is Into the Wild. So spoiler alert on that one. We're talking about Into the Wild, and I think Adam's the one that's kind of like spoiler, major spoiler for that movie. So yeah, you've been warned. Joker and Into the Wild, spoiler alert. Anyways, let's jump into it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It was an interesting analysis and a discussion about Joker. And yeah, let's get into it. So have fun and enjoy. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, dear Earthlings. Here we is with Adam, PJP's favorite alien. But this time he's from speaking from Earth. We're here on Planet Joe Pod, so we can hear that it's a satellite phone that he's speaking from.
Location independent, the virtual world that we live in.
Right. So yeah, Adam's in London right before he's going to Shanghai, which most of you listeners know already from the last episode. We talked about it.
Yes, taking a pit stop in London before my exploration, my adventure in Shanghai. So it's bloody freezing here, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's got to do with it, but I actually stupidly arrived in London with flip-flops.
Oh, really?
That was an awful decision. And the moment I came out, I had like dragon breath. I was like, oh no, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, London weather, London winter is pretty brutal.
Oh, it's so... I mean, I went out for a walk with my dog today. Mm-hmm. She looks at me like am I expected to actually go out in this weather? But yeah, it's pretty brutal. And that being said, there's like 2 months a year that London is not great. So,
Yeah, right.
yeah, this is the rule. This is not the exception to the rule.
Yeah. So when are you heading out to Shanghai?
I am heading out to Shanghai in a week and a bit from now, next Friday.
Okay. Cool. Exciting.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Cool. Yeah. So this is cool. I mean, this is our first online interview, if you will. Right?
Yeah. Planet Joe Digital Pod.
Yeah. Which is cool because I was starting this week. I started looking into, having guests on PJP online, like through Hangouts or Skype or whatever. So it's a good practice.
Yeah, totally. So who's up next? WikiLeaks or Julian Assange?
No, actually, I I wish I could bring those guys. You want to hear something funny though? I always see Lawrence Sher, the cinematographer of Joker, on many like small time YouTube channels. Like he gives interviews, and that made me think I should maybe email the guy. Maybe he looks so humble and. Like you never know,
you don't shoot, you don't score, kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. Shot in the dark. Like,
yeah. I actually, when I was a kid, I sent a letter to Tony Blair when I was 6 or 7 years old. I don't remember about what, and I got a response now with his signature. Now maybe it was the receptionist or someone in his campaign team, but
still, it's nice.
I did get a response.
Right.
Like, it was nice.
Yeah.
Because I definitely remembered that and showed it off to my class.
Yeah. That is cool.
Yeah.
So I actually thought about that. But I actually have someone lined up. I don't know if I should give it up. Well, maybe I should. It's probably going to be the next episode.
Okay.
A proud slut from the States.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm actually really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Like,
that she's very open and she's actually there's a couple of them. So I'm thinking maybe I don't know, put like both interviews in one pod, but
yeah, well maybe like in some sense, maybe further down the line you can get them both on at the same time.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't know if it might be a bit awkward since we don't know each other, or maybe that might make it interesting because of that.
Yeah, I think that sometimes the beauty of it is like, let's say that both these fine ladies have reclaimed the word slut. Just because they're both proud to be sluts doesn't mean that they necessarily have reclaimed it in the same manner. So
right,
it's kind of interesting to see that you have two people on the same side, but that have kind of different definitions or different interpretations.
And you hit it on the nail because there are, like, from the emails that we went back and forth, they are very different, and that's why I was like, I don't know if it's a good idea to put them together, but you're right. Actually, that would make it more interesting because that's exactly it. They're so different. Like they have so different point of view on sluthood.
Yeah, I think that's what happens sometimes. Is like something becomes like when you're fighting against something, you're kind of on the same side. But the beauty of it is sometimes in the nuance that, that like kind of, let's say, not in a counter sense, but it's kind of like, okay, so this is a new topic. We kind of need to like discuss this out, like to really kind of like figure out like the finer details of what we're actually going for here. Yeah, I'm actually very keen to hear it individually and, if possible, collectively.
Yeah.
What's going to happen there.
Yeah, so that's most likely that's the next pod that's going to be. So there you go, listeners. The secret is out.
You lucky.
Next episode.
Lucky lads. Yes. Okay.
Cool.
I'm one of those keen listeners.
Yeah. All right. So let's. Well, first of all, I want to announce that last episode, the Joker was or is the most successful one, and Adam, believe it or not, the one right behind it is the second. The Earthling is back. That's the second
Okay.
most successful one.
Interesting. The sequel isn't usually better than the
I know, right?
Yeah, okay. Ace Ventura 2 kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So Adam obviously, he's like I said it before, like the PJP producer. Obviously he heard it. So here I want to open up and kind of talk about what I feel about it. And I felt that it's the worst pod that I've done. Because it's something that I was so passionate about and so excited about. I sounded like a 10-year-old girl in a candy store, like, oh, I don't know what to say. And it came across that way. That's one. The other thing, and Adam hit it on the nail, he knew it before, or no, he didn't know that it wasn't prepared, but he said that it was kind of obvious, and it's true. It came across that way. It wasn't really prepared. I was like, I just did bullet points, and I just went through the movie from beginning to end. And I don't know, it was dreadful. I couldn't finish it. I ended up finishing it. I have to hear every episode I record from beginning to end just for technicality to see that the audio is good and all that. But it was so slow and so. But yeah, surprisingly, it's the most successful one. It's a little over 400 downloads. And I was just telling Adam before we started recording, before we went on air, that I think it's kind of a cop-out because Joker, the title, maybe that's why it got that many downloads. But I don't know if people enjoyed it. So let's hear Adam's analysis of my analysis. And Adam, be yourself. Don't be nice because we're on air. Yeah, you can grill me like you did off air.
Yeah. So okay, I'll say. Let me start with this. One of the most difficult things to do when you're an expert in anything and when you have like a lot of information is to explain something simply. And I think that sometimes, when you ask people like, what do you do? And they find it really difficult to summarize what they do because they're like, there's so many different aspects to their job that when you like kind of want them to summarize in one sentence, like, what do you do? They can't do it. So sometimes the people closest to a topic are not necessarily the best ones to explain something simply. And I think that that's maybe what happened with the podcast that was done. Now, the numbers don't lie, but my impression of like listening to it was like, wow, like in order to kind of really grasp everything you're saying and to really appreciate the finer details, like I need to be like a movie buff. Like I really need to kind of have a language, like a terminology of like appreciating the finer things. And as let's say the average moviegoer, because I've never studied film or something like that, it was appreciating the finer details before really getting into the meat of it. And that's kind of the impression that I got coming out of it, was that it was difficult for me to listen to because there were like so many of these kind of minor details that I was like, oh, like I need to watch the movie again now to kind of really grasp what you're saying. That being said, and to kind of relate to what I said originally before the spiel, is that I am one of those people that's kind of close to what you're doing, and my feedback might be as blinkered as a result. So maybe this is a bit of a cop-out, but it's quite possible that my formula for what I think is the most successful thing for the listeners may be kind of so out of touch with actually like the true way to succeed with the podcast, because full disclosure, I'm also like a newbie to this game. And I'm also very kind of curious to see, as you move forwards, kind of what are like the things that really take off and what are really kind of successful topics to discuss and which ones maybe are not so much. But, listening to that podcast, I really do think that was like an expert analysis. Whereas as a result, I don't know if it was kind of the thing that can kind of, let's say, be like layman talk for the average moviegoer. But I'm certain that people that have studied film and who have like a deeper appreciation for like the difficulties of putting together a movie and like kind of this symphony of everything coming together, I'm sure you love listening to some of the points that that you'd addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying like it was like the over technical. It wasn't.
Yeah, I think
it was too heavy.
Just to kind of put it in simpler terms, for me, it wasn't simple enough. I think it's an Einstein quote where it says, everything should be simplified to the as simple as it can be, but not any simpler than that. Right?
Yeah.
So there's kind of like this minimum level of simplicity, but you don't want to go beyond that to a point where you kind of have missed out on kind of this kind of deeper insight. And I think that you were kind of functioning on this higher level where like the trained ear, trained eyes when it comes to movies could really appreciate what you were saying. But like as someone who was kind of like taking on all this new information and this new knowledge, it kind of like fizzed out my brain a bit. I was like, wow, there's like a lot of information, and like some of it was just kind of going over my head.
Yeah.
But that being said, I definitely enjoyed it. It does make me want to see it again. I've seen it 2 times. I don't think I've quite at your level yet, Joe, but I've seen it twice until now, Joker. And after listening to the pod, it does make me want to kind of watch it again. Things you mentioned, like the color palette and the lighting, like definitely not things that I had at the front of my mind, kind of watching it while watching the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that as feedback?
About what?
What I just said.
About everything?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but the whole like the heavy technical terms of analyzing it, I think it was intentional. And in my head, I'm thinking like people that don't know, like, you know, what it's like behind the camera, like kind of like educating. I think what made it like heavy and what made it too much is the delivery of it. Because, you know, if you're excited about something and you're talking about it with excitement, you're pulling in the listener. Does that make sense? Like, I think if I would deliver it with excitement and I don't know, I was like in shock when I talked about it, because I'm like in shock from that art piece. But it sounded like, you know, like, and I think the delivery, that's what made it like painful to hear for those close to 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a point about your tone where I mean, this was a point I made regarding the seemingly lack of enthusiasm. And I know that that's not the truth of how you felt about it, but it sounded a bit aloof and a bit indifferent at times.
Right.
And the other thing was like, you were sometimes overwhelming yourself because you had so much that you wanted to say, and you were trying to like squeeze it in this way, and it's kind of like oh, like I've got so much to say, and so as a result, you kind of lost track. You kind of lost. Yeah,
that's exactly what I felt, like a bottleneck of so many things that I want to talk about, and then there was like this bottleneck that I was like, like not one word comes out, like. So yeah, I felt terrible about it. Like, honestly, and I think I told you this right after I uploaded, that it was so bad that I'm thinking of deleting it. That's how bad I felt about it when I heard it. But I think the delivery is what destroyed it. It's just like I'm talking about how excited I am, but I sound like I'm fucking asleep.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, myself listening to it, when I listen to the podcast, I try to go out of my own mind a little bit to imagine how it would sound to someone that doesn't know you and kind of is the, let's say, the average listener, if such a thing exists. But because I personally was nodding along with a lot of what you were saying, and I didn't kind of lose interest in that sense, because I was kind of like I love the movie. I mean, I'll give you an example of one thing where I was just like, I totally agree, and you articulated it in a way which was very true to me, was that with regarding the movie as a visual masterpiece.
Yeah.
And that was something which when I came out the cinema, I was like, you know what, the dialogue of that movie was amazing, and I don't even think that was the best thing about the movie.
Right.
You said at one point about like where you pause the movie at any point and it looks like a painting.
Yeah.
And that's what I came out thinking, and without kind of necessarily being able to articulate, what you said regarding the color palette or the lighting or things like that. I came out thinking like just seeing an artistic, just true art. Like and the fact that I felt like I could watch that movie on mute. I could watch it as a silent movie.
Right.
I think I could watch it.
Exactly.
And I think I could follow along with it.
Exactly.
And I don't know, it was such like, I came out thinking like, why I had to see it a second time is like, this is the most beautiful movie, like just visually, the most beautiful movie that I've seen in such a long time.
Yeah.
And the thing for me that like makes an amazing movie, and something which has been lacking in cinema for me, for quite a while, is transformation. I have not seen that many movies where the character at the end of the movie is clearly different from the character at the start of the movie. So I'll give you an example which I think really exemplifies it well, which is Rain Man. And the reason I loved Rain Man was that it's quite obvious in that movie that Tom Cruise's character, from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, has gone through a complete evolution.
Yeah, character arc.
Complete progression, his arc. And Dustin Hoffman's character, the autistic character, quite clearly has not gone through the same arc.
Right.
Like, he's quite clearly, almost the same person. And you can see that at the end of the movie, the contrast between those two in terms of how far Tom Cruise has gone on his journey versus, apologies for not remembering the characters' names, but versus Dustin Hoffman's character. It's like kind of like, oh my, like it's really changed a lot. Another one that comes to mind is Gran Torino. I remember when I saw that movie, I was like, this is an amazing movie because Clint Eastwood's character has just like, never mind even the content, like you just compare the result
from beginning to end.
And the transformation, that the things that happened to him, the way that he overcame it, but not just overcame it, the fact that it actually changed the essence of his character at the end of the movie is like, okay, this is a good movie, right? But yeah, I don't know. There are like so many things about the movie. I mean, I don't even know where you want to start in terms of. So
here's my first question that I see quite a few podcasters or YouTubers say, and I think they're just trying to be PC, politically correct, when they say, what makes me uncomfortable, this is like quoting them, what makes me uncomfortable is that this movie makes you sympathize with a monster. So to me, it's so PC because I'm like, is he really a monster, or are you just saying this not to get shit from people, like just trying to be politically correct? Like, to me, he's not a monster. Yeah, I mean, he kills people and people freak out from it. Again, it's because it's so freaking real. And I brought this up in the Joker episode when I said, like, if you look at Deadpool or some other, superhero movies, the body count is like, it can reach 100. Over here, he killed 6. But people say it's so violent because it's so freaking real. If it was just some guy running around and shooting people in car chases and explosions, it's not violent. It's fun to see people die. Yeah. So my question to you is, do you feel that Arthur is a monster?
Absolutely not. And we touched base at work also about how Thanos in the Avengers, got rid of half of humanity, and nobody really remembers much of an outcry about it.
Right, exactly.
Look, I think that what sometimes people want are simple explanations. And the typical superhero movie, Spider-Man getting bit by this radioactive spider, or the Hulk being exposed to radiation, or even Batman's case, his parents being shot. There's kind of this like one moment of drama that is like this moment that is like, okay, this is the crux. This is the moment that the person has become, his the resulting superhero, whatever it might be. This movie, what kills me is that, and I've heard a few people say this in their analysis of the movie, is that the reason why it's dangerous is that they take, for example, Arthur's moment in the subway, where he gets attacked by those guys, and they're like, do you know why this movie is dangerous? Because then every guy who gets attacked in a subway, that's all that they need in order to respond in that way and to kill people. And it's like, wait a second. If you actually saw this movie, and I assume these people have not seen the movie, if you think that the only reason that Arthur responded in that way, and that's all, was just because that happened to him, then you've completely misunderstood the whole movie.
Exactly.
Okay? He has child abuse. Everyone who he trusts effectively betrays him. For the first two guys, we can talk about the third guy. First two guys, he was effectively acting in self-defense.
Right.
Like, it's so crazy for someone to come out of that movie and be like, oh, this guy who's crazy, guys attacked him, and that's all it took was for him to respond in that way.
And that's how people talk about him. Yeah. Like,
I'm convinced that they haven't seen the movie, because it's like, how can you not, like, there are all of the scenes that lead up to that moment, even things like him losing his job and, his situation with his mental health and his medication, his mother's situation with his mother, the situation with his coworkers, like being given the gun, like there are so many things.
Right.
Here.
Yeah.
So that's my long answer to your thing, which is no, I don't think that Arthur is a monster. I do think that even though he kind of has a code, kind of like, let's say Dexter, right? Like he kind of has some kind of code. There is, I think, the moment for everyone in the movie where they kind of check out and they go, okay, now he's gone too far. And I think that the first time I saw the movie, my checkout was later than the second time I saw the movie. I think that the first time I saw the movie, it was like almost up to the point that he killed his mother, or that he killed his, killed his mother, killed his friend, kind of that phase of the movie. I was kind of on his side. I kind of saw him as the hero of the movie, and he still hadn't kind of become that anti-hero antagonist character. Yep. Spoiler alert, by the way.
Right. Oh yeah, we forgot. An hour after. Spoiler alert, guys. Whoops. Yeah, I gotta put that in the show notes. We totally forgot. Whoops. That's funny.
But look, just like that, there's not that one moment, okay, where, like, because it's such a slow boil,
right?
That's what makes the movie so beautiful. It's like there's not this like one moment. It's like, now he's the Joker.
Not only that, to top it off, and this is what I love about, for what makes a good character is a good conflict for the character, circumstances. And with Arthur, what I think what made people like freak out and sympathize with him, and then it made them feel uncomfortable that they're sympathizing with I don't even feel comfortable saying psychopath. I mean, yeah, he's mentally ill, but what I love about it, that he's really trying to not go to the bad route, if that makes sense. He's trying, like he's begging for his employer not to fire him. He's I mentioned this before. When you see him as a clown at the children's hospital or even on the street when he's dancing, he's so committed. He's so like, glowing, and he's dance, like every move is like so physical. And that tells a lot about the character, that he's trying. He's really trying to find. And not only that, the ultimate message of Arthur, what he always says, that he wants to make, he's put on the earth to make people happy. And that makes it such a beautiful conflict with the circumstances, because he's trying so hard to get his shit together, and he's getting slapped and beat up and falls on the ground, and then he gets up again and he continues, and he gets beat up again, and it makes it so beautiful. And like you said, it's not one thing that makes him snap. And I think the snap, like many people might be surprised, but I think the snap that he had is at the Murray show. That's when he was like, and then again, and this Todd Phillips and Joaquin also say that snap, it's not only Arthur, it's like Arthur is gone. The Joker is out. So he just found a new self. And
right.
And even there and then that snap, it kind of makes sense why he's so pissed at Murray. That was another one that betrayed him. Oh shit, excuse me.
No worries. I will respond to that. So I think that part of the reason why people find it so unsettling, and part of the reason why they find it so easy to kind of dismiss Arthur as a monster, is that like the truth is that it's quite possible that if people were in Arthur's shoes, that they would be behaving in exactly the same way. I think that's what people really find uncomfortable, is this idea, well, you know what? If I had to walk the same road that Arthur has walked, that I would effectively be in the same state of anarchy that he got to. Mm-hmm. And an interesting thing that I also saw with a couple of YouTube videos is that despite, I guess, what you're saying, which is that maybe that moment is when Arthur becomes the Joker, mm-hmm. whenever you hear the director, Todd Phillips, talking about Arthur, you never hear him call him the Joker. I've never heard him call him the Joker.
Right.
Even at the end of the movie, he refers to him as Arthur.
Right.
Which is that, like, he's never really, at least I think in the way that Todd is interpreting, he never actually loses all of his humanity. Mm-hmm. There's still that, like, and whenever someone says monster, they're kind of saying they've lost all their humanity. Right. And in Arthur's case, it's like, actually, okay, he's gone too far. I think everybody can agree, like, hopefully,
right.
most civilized people can agree that, that he's gone too far. Mm-hmm. That, like, throughout the movie, again, everyone kind of has, like, a different point. But yeah, at least as I see it, at the last scene, he's in hospital. Okay, I see that's Arthur. Mm-hmm. I don't see that as the Joker. Mm. Now, before I said that Arthur, the second time I saw the movie, I had less tolerance. My threshold for when I was with Arthur, maybe it's because I knew how it ended, but was at an earlier point. And it was because I picked up on something, which is maybe totally unfair, but it's something I picked up on, which is that the first time I saw the movie, I saw Arthur as someone who was 100% honest. Mm-hmm, right. And what happened was that, like, at no point in the movie does he do something which is against his honesty, apart from where he seems to rehearse that he's going to commit suicide on the Murray show. Right. And at that moment, he goes against what we expect. Yes. Okay? Yes. But the second time I saw the movie, there was a moment where I was like, oh, 1 second, I feel like he's violated his code. And this is maybe unfair, but I think it's when he lied about the gun. For me, that was a strange moment for me, when he said that the gun was just a prop, and it was like, okay, he's trying to keep his job, but he's actually, in that moment, I felt like he kind of undermined his own moral code, which was like that despite all of these circumstances and all of these kind of really unfair situation where you have so much empathy and sympathy for his situation, it's like, well, he's lied there, and he's misrepresented the truth.
But that's also beautiful because it also shows that he's Arthur's skin's starting to peel off, because that's the first time that he's actually starting to do bad things in order to save himself. If that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I mean, when you think about the difference of empathy and sympathy, this was actually something which kind of crossed my mind as I was leaving the theater. Was kind of like, so if I have sympathy, I'm kind of looking at Arthur and I'm thinking, I feel sorry for him because his mother clearly has a mental illness and he clearly has a mental illness and his medication got cut off and all that. And I feel sorry for him. And the empathy is like, if I was in his shoes, would I be acting in the same way? I mean, like, if you think about kind of how you view Arthur as a character, I mean, do you feel like he embodies part of the way you might behave in that situation? Or do you kind of be like, okay, there are some people in society who are like downtrodden, and we need to kind of, as a society, be more responsible in kind of looking after the people who may have mental illness, be a lower socioeconomic status, and all that kind of thing.
So yeah, you pretty much answered the question, because and that's what I love about it, that it's not a normal person that can look at it and say, would I behave like that? Because he's not a normal person. He's mentally ill, specifically because of the abuse that he went through as a child. But it's also a huge mirror to society. Like, it's not, the question is like, would I behave like that? Is the question like, we should, pay more attention to the mental ill, to the less fortunate. And that's what I love about it. It's has a huge underlying message. And that brings me to, remember I talked about Jonah Hari, that British guy who did the TED Talk, who did the whole research about addiction with the rat heaven and all that, where he researched around the world, and he talked about specific places around the world where mental illness is treated with a huge hug by society, where it's treated with, not only medication, society doesn't shun them away, and they behave almost as normal. They can function because they can get a decent job. People they don't push them to the sidelines. And in America, unfortunately, it's very known. It's huge. If you're mental ill, you suffer from mental illness, or if you have a criminal record, you're done. You're shunned to the sidelines. People don't pay attention. And it's a great line where he says at the Murray show, before he shoots him, like when they were talking about killing those 3 guys, and he says, if it was me, people would walk over my body and they wouldn't even notice me. And it's so true. Like, when it comes to the mental ill and the less fortunate. So
So I think I can't remember the TED Talk or not, but that someone once described the way that people talk about people that have depression or schizophrenia, mental illness, like they have cooties, like it's contagious.
Right, exactly.
Right, it's like radioactive.
Yeah,
and it's like it's kind of like the instinct is not to kind of be empathetic and to reach out and to kind of give these people a hand up, or to give them the infrastructure for them to succeed despite what is effectively a mental disability. It's,
or when people expect, like when Arthur wrote, the worst part of mental illness is that people expect you to behave like as if you don't have it.
Right. It's, so there's an Oscar Wilde quote, right? It's like, give a man a mask and he'll tell you the truth, right?
Right.
And I feel like that the movie really plays with that idea, where it's kind of like, I mean, the Joker comics have something which is they pay homage to in the movie, which is that everyone is one bad day away from being the Joker. One bad day from that kind of moment, that chaos conquers order, and it's like anarchy. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, like you said, the reason this movie is crazy because it's so introspective. It's so like really, and I've not seen a movie like this in such a while,
Right.
which directly addresses so many things
Exactly.
which are so relevant to modern society.
Exactly.
So people walking out, okay, it's because they don't have the resilience to deal with the truth.
Mhm.
And so much
Right.
of what was put on show there, okay? And let's not forget that this is a movie at the end of the day. Like
Exactly.
when people talk about violence and everything, like
Yeah.
I think 6 people got killed in this movie,
Mhm.
okay? And like you made
Right.
reference that last podcast as well, which is that like, what do you want to ignore these issues? Because you ignore it, it's not going to go away.
Right.
And this is exactly, the people who say that they not to watch the movie, okay, like it's the opposite. Everybody should watch this movie,
Right.
because this movie really shines a light
Mhm.
on some very, very difficult conversations that people need to have about mental health.
Yeah.
And I think from a previous podcast, I said that the child who is not embraced by his village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Yeah.
Right. And that is something which is like this kind of thing where we want to be preventative in dealing with these issues. And the people that say that the straw that broke the camel's back was just this kind of conflict that he had when he was on the subway and he was getting beaten up. It's like, no, there's so many more factors to this. Okay. Child abuse, access to a gun, mental health funding. Okay. Like the guy's medication, he's on 8 medications or whatever. His medication gets cut. I mean, it's
years of buildup.
It's a whole movie. There's a whole story.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not like the moment is the moment. Okay. There's like everything in his life like built up to that moment. And I mean, when you first watch the movie, the moment that he becomes predatory, right? The moment that like with the third Wall Street guy.
Yeah, from victim to predator.
Right. Okay. Was that a moment where you felt that you kind of lost your compassion for Arthur and you like he's gone too far, or were you kind of still on his side to an extent?
I was totally on his side, and it made me like realize all the times in my life where I was so angry and pissed off that I snapped, and it was never physical violence, but if I said something that I wasn't supposed to say, or I made a decision like quit a job because I was so pissed or whatever. So it made me realize that sometimes you have that boiling point where you're just fucking sick of it. You're sick of it. And those guys, I mean, it ties up to, when he was beat up at the beginning of the movie. So this time he's like, fuck it. This time I'm standing for myself. This time you're not going to run from me. You hit me. You abused you. It's some sort of a snap. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure many people will say I'm fucked up in the head that I still didn't say I kind of understood him. And what I loved about, again, the direction, the way Todd shot it, he was always, I mentioned it before, the camera was sitting next to Arthur. Arthur was out of focus in frame. The whole situation, we were next to Arthur up until the moment where he ran out of the train. And then we're a witness, we're a voyeur. If you remember, the shot is from inside the train. We're seeing Arthur chasing that guy. That's the only time that actually the director intentionally wants you to disconnect you a little bit with the character, like seeing it from the side to not like sympathize. But then again, the whole running, the whole thing, it's like reconnecting, and you're seeing how it's affecting him, that it's not a cold-blooded murder. Like, I don't know. I sympathized with him. For me, the whole gone too far, and I enjoyed it as a movie, was the whole Murray murder, like live on TV and all that. I was like, yeah, as in reality, it's gone too far, but for a movie, it's like fucking wow. Like, here comes the Joker. He's going to start kicking some ass.
Yeah, and I kind of questioned to myself whether when he's on the show at the end, whether he changes his mind or whether it's premeditated. That maybe he felt like he was going to follow his own script, and
the killing himself or Murray.
Yeah. And he was like, you know what? I don't deserve this. You deserve
exactly.
this.
Yeah. So many people question that. I still question that. Yeah. And Todd and Joaquin were asked that so many times. But what I love about them, and you said you liked it, they don't reveal anything. They were like, nope, we're going to leave you guessing. That's what makes it so good.
Right. And I mean, just to clarify my thoughts on the murder was that when he killed the third Wall Street guy, I was really unsure, especially the first time, what I thought about it. But what happened was that when he went into the bathroom, there was something really graceful about the way that he processed what he had done.
Right.
Where, like, in that moment, it's like, okay, I'm not going to say he's justified killing this guy, but there's like there was this elegance where it was like about, like, he's finally discovering his own identity.
Yes.
And in that moment, you're like, okay, like, I don't know if I want to still be on his side, but I guess I am, because it's like, he's been like, you know, he's been so pushed down his whole life. And like, this is the first moment that he's really like taken the bull by the horns and he's like finding out who he really is.
Right. And another great point right there. And then, like, after he kills the three guys, it's another mirror to the media, because the media started with the whole, this guy started a movement. He didn't start anything. It started with self-defense, but the media created this whole movement. And actually the media created the Joker. And I think I forgot to mention that in the previous podcast. And that's exactly where we're at today with, you know, the media. They're creating a buzz about something that's non-existent, and they create it. And even, you know, towards the end of the show, when Murray asks him, you're a part of the movement, and he said, I don't believe in anything. I'm not a part of anything. When the whole city's on fire because of him, but it's not because of him, it's because of the fucking media. There's a whole movement, kill the rich, blah, blah. So he wasn't, you know, he never had a motive of being a monster, like some people say. Like, he's never, it wasn't really in him. I think that's what makes it beautiful. It was forced on him. The Joker was forced on him.
Yeah, you know, the thing is that I don't think I've seen a movie like this apart from maybe 127 Hours, which is, I think, every scene of the Joker, Arthur is in it, in every scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are with him along the whole journey. And it's kind of like, because of that slow boil, the heat slowly getting turned up, that you kind of, there isn't that kind of like moment where you're so shocked by something he's done, because you see the build up to that moment.
Yeah, it
reminds me of that frog experiment, right? Where when the frog is kind of put into a boiling hot pot, it will jump straight out. But then when the frog is in the pot and the water is cold, and you slowly increase the temperature,
he won't jump out.
Yeah, he won't jump out, and the frog dies. And it's kind of like, and
that's a great analogy.
I'm sure that there are some audience members who probably feel that way. They came out of the movie, they're like, wow, like, up to the moment that he killed his mom or he killed his coworker, like, I was like with him. Like, I'm sure that there are some guys out there, which is, I guess, what people fear, is that, like, that even at the end of the movie, and this is why I guess they thought that it would inspire violence, but I don't see it at all. And I think that everyone who kind of just kind of off the bat labels Arthur as a monster, okay, like you already know what they think about kind of video games and violence, right? And that kind of thing, like, that they oversimplify it, and that they kind of you know, I guess they have this non-confrontational approach to kind of what to do about difficult subjects.
Yeah, let's label it and throw it in the drawer and hide it.
Yeah, right. Hiding it is exactly like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I definitely am going to see this movie a third time. I mean, in terms of what's real, is there, I mean, apart from what was kind of explicitly not real, like his relationship with Sophie, like, what's your kind of conclusion about?
I fucking loved it, because that's the main thing that jumped at me, that I'm like, why did they do that? Like, everything is so real, and now, like, it doesn't make sense. Why would she hang out with them? And then when it's in his head, I'm like, fuck, yes. It's like that's it. Oh my God. It just made it so much more real.
But what do you think is real? I mean, is there like you made reference to the shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like it being more than 6 shots, I think 8 shots or 9 shots you said. So what, like, I mean, do you think it's possible that the whole thing is a Shutter Island, Patient Zero, that he never leaves the...
And the whole, last seconds of the movie when he's in the hospital, that kind of tells us like he just made up a story to tell the therapist, and maybe she was his first kill.
I don't actually think he killed the therapist. That's the thing. I know that the movie depicts that he has blood on his shoes, but at that point he's such an unreliable narrator.
So what's your theory, that the blood stains is also in his head?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, okay. I have 2 quite black and white different interpretations. Because there are so many different ways that I could see the movie. I thought I'd settle on just 2.
Okay.
So the first one is that the whole thing is as delusional and as hallucinatory as his fantasy when he first sees the Murray show with his mom, right?
Right.
Which is that the whole thing is in his head.
Yeah.
Okay. He never leaves the hospital. And the biggest thing which says that to me is that in the very final scene of the movie, when he says you're not going to get the joke, he has an image of Bruce standing over his parents his killed parents. He never saw that. Okay. Right. Arthur never saw that. Once some vigilante or whatever, some guy got inspired, was wearing a clown mask, shot them, and there was no way that Arthur witnessed it or has any recollection of that.
Unless it's I don't know, some time after it happened and he heard it.
Okay, so right, that's why I think that maybe it was televised, and so he kind of put together this whole story, which would lead to the moment that his actions inspired someone to kill Bruce Wayne's parents. But so and then so that movie, I'm really with like Shutter Island and it's Patient Zero, and he's never left, and that's the joke. Okay, like the joke is that he's put together this story to say how he is responsible for Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed. The other interpretation I have is that the important moment in the movie is when Arthur stops taking his medication. So I think that he kills the 3 Wall Street guys, okay, even though maybe exaggerated a bit, like demonstrated by the number of shots, and that when he stops taking his medication, from that moment on, there is kind of some weird things that happen in the movie which kind of made me think twice. So again, the obvious one is like that really brings it to mind is his relationship with his neighbor. Another one was that when he was running away from the cops, he gets hit by a car, and he just kind of gets straight up. Right. And I know that but like there was kind of this weird moment where he just kind of like he really just gets like straight up.
And don't forget how skinny he is. Like, if a skinny guy like him gets hit by a car, that's broken bones right there.
There's another moment where he is looking for Thomas Wayne because he reads that his mom, apparently is, that Thomas Wayne is his dad. He's standing as an usher in the middle of this theater. We have no idea how he got there. He's just kind of like standing there and just like watching the movie. I'm like, how did he even get there? Like it was kind of, for me, it kind of came out of nowhere.
Well, they showed how he snuck in though, if you remember.
I do. The issue was not him sneaking in. He's just kind of walking down, and he's just kind of like there. And that's not like one of the most unrealistic things, but there was something kind of eerie about it that he just kind of like was just like in the middle of this thing, and he kind of like just like looks to the side, and there was something kind of delusional I found about it. But look, none of these things kind of make me think that it didn't happen. I think that they are just kind of either exaggerated in some way or something along those lines. And something else that really crosses my mind is that even though the movie's kind of intentionally making us kind of think this over and really process, and that it's intentionally ambiguous, is that people would love for the movie to be a delusion. They would love the movie to be a delusion, because maybe that's the biggest joke about it.
Yeah.
Is that it really did happen, and people are kind of desperate for air. They're like, oh no, it didn't really happen.
Yeah.
Because they're so uncomfortable with the idea that this chain of events happened,
and it's all a lie.
Yeah, right. That's like exactly what we were saying before. Instead of letting it sink in and being like, this is a realistic situation, and like the credit to Joaquin for humanizing this role, making it so relatable, and 6 deaths, and people are talking about it like the most violent movie ever made because of the quality of the deaths.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But everyone has this like deeper meaning. There's this justified code to his behavior, which, by the way, and you addressed this, is why we basically know as the viewer that he didn't kill Sophie, because she didn't do anything bad to him.
Right.
Just like he showed mercy to the little guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And like gave him a kiss on the head and like, whatever. There's some satire there. But like, we know he didn't kill Sophie because he's not in his essence supposed to be some bad guy who kills for the sake of killing.
Right.
It's like he has a code, and Sophie is nothing but just, she's a good person, and Arthur has no grudge, has no reason for vengeance against her, and like that's the crazy thing about the movie, and it reminds me a bit of Dexter, where it's like he does have this code, and the scariest thing for people is the possibility that his actions are reasonable.
Exactly.
That his actions are rational on some level.
That's what makes people uncomfortable, because like that they sympathize with it, and like, wait a minute, am I sympathizing with the monster? Like I told you, they say that, but that's what makes people freak out.
Right, but it's even more than sympathy. It's like a logical conclusion.
Right.
Okay, it's almost like he's actually thought this through. He's not being impulsive anymore. Okay, maybe the first killings were impulsive because of the self-defense.
Yeah.
But now he's like, no, wait, I see that in his words, that that he thought his life was a tragedy and it's actually a comedy.
Right.
And this is his way of rationalizing the seemingly irrational. Louis C.K. has an excellent stand-up, if you've not seen it, about how if murder was legal, that people would literally just be like killing each other the whole time, and it would be like, like what, like the guy that hasn't killed, like, oh, he hasn't killed anyone, but like, what a weirdo,
right? Yeah, exactly.
It's like supermarkets.
What, you have only 10 kills? You wuss.
Yeah, exactly.
That's humanity for you, and that's the movie. It's the mirror of humanity in your face for so many things.
Yeah, and I mean, so the movie Into the Wild.
Yeah.
So the thing is that like, and it's the reason why I need to see a Joker many more times. Every time I watch that movie, I have a different interpretation of his actions. Because the first time I saw that movie, I was like, this guy is my hero. That he's kind of like cut off from society and all that kind of thing. And then now maybe it's because I'm older or something like that, and I see the movie and I'm like, you know what? He's gone too far. And suddenly I start having more respect for like the father figures in the movie, like the ones that kind of try to stop him from really kind of going all out. And like you see it with Vince Vaughn's character, and you see it with the hippies, and you see it with the old guy at the very end with the leather, right? And it's like these guys are like,
slow it down.
You slow down, slow down. And the more that I see the movie, the more I'm like, do you know what? Like, he's actually rebelled too hard. And it took me many times to see the movie to reach that conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that he dies, but that was, on some level, bad luck. The fact that he died is somewhat irrelevant. I actually think to the larger scheme of things, apart from maybe the fact that it's trying to show that that's what happens when you rebel too hard. But like, and I think that that's what's going to happen is that when I watch the movie over again and again, I will start to reach different conclusions, probably based on where I am in my life.
Exactly. That's art. That's art. It's just like, a good song that, you can hear it at a certain age and it stirs some emotions, and years after that, it can bring up memories, but you can hear it differently.
It's subjective, Murray.
Right? Murray. So let me ask you this. There's another thing that I actually wrote it in the bullet points and I skipped it. I forgot to mention it. I don't know how crucial it is for the movie. Maybe subconsciously I skipped it because I can't put my thumb on it. The first scene, the beginning of the movie where he's talking to the therapist, there's a clock behind him and it's 11 o'clock. And then he talks about when he says something when I was in the hospital, and then it cuts to him, smashing his head on the door, the hospital. And there's a clock right above the door and it's the same time. It's 11:11. So
I think that same time is also the very end of the movie when he's talking to the lady who actually looks somewhat similar.
It's a different time.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to say, okay, I wonder if that cut to that hospital and while he's talking to the therapist, it's the same time. I'm trying to think maybe there's a message here. Maybe it means that he is actually right now in the hospital and he's telling us that story.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you can interpret it in different ways. But.
Sure. I think I saw... I think I did see something about that, and that kind of does support the idea that he is literally telling this story, and the final scene is the end of the story or something along those lines. I think that sometimes, maybe I'm not giving enough credit to the director because everything was so intentional in this movie.
Yes.
Sometimes I wonder whether there's some things that they put there just to throw you off. So, for example, like the 8 shots, okay? I wonder whether that's just something where you're just supposed to doubt yourself for a second, just to throw you off. And it's, we know he's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
We know that we can't trust him completely. Okay.
So I have this real, sorry to cut you off. Real quick. Joaquin Phoenix talks about, I can't remember one of the interviews they asked him about some detail in the background. Now it's just like, I don't know, Picasso, painting. When you look at things, you're like every brush stroke is so calculated, but as an artist, it's not. It's just like he runs with it. I'm going to throw some of this color in here and some there, and I'm going to press harder on the brush and this. It's not that calculated. That's an artist, right? But when you look at it, like holy shit, this is. So Joaquin talked about it, and he's like that he laughs every time when he sees people bringing things that they didn't think about, not Todd or Joaquin. And he said when my sisters saw it, they were like, okay, you got to tell us this or that in the background. What does that mean? And he's like, I don't know. How did you get to that conclusion? And I laughed. I was like, that's what makes it so such a freaking art piece, because so many people see things that it wasn't planned. That I don't know. You guys see it that way, but that's what makes it cool. So yeah, like you said, some of it can be intentional, and some of it can be I don't know. Maybe they just didn't pay attention, like the 8 shots, for example, but that one, I think it's something like 8 shots. It's not something that you can miss. So I think, I don't know if it's either intentional, like you said, to put doubt but there's so many things that people talk about that I've heard from Todd and Joaquin and Lawrence, the cinematographer, that wasn't the plan, but people see it that way and they overanalyze or whatever. But we're happy to hear that this is what they see. It's like...
Yeah, so I can tell you as a Game of Thrones fan that most of the fan theories about how that ended, I was more happy with the fan theories than I was with what the actual show did. I mean, I think the beautiful thing about art is that art has a life of its own.
Exactly.
and especially this movie is a very introspective movie. You're with Arthur all the way, and the beautiful thing about his journey is that for the viewer, it's an internalized journey. It's a journey inwards. You're questioning your own morality, I find.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so personalized. And look, if Shakespeare was alive today and he went into high schools around the world and he's like, I did not mean that at all.
Exactly.
Right? You're overanalyzing this.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I was not going for that.
Yeah.
And I think that, maybe the really nice thing is that sometimes just because it's accidental doesn't mean it's not beautiful.
Exactly.
Because there is so much about our behavior that's subconscious that like maybe on some weird dimension you did mean that without knowing that you meant it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, it reminds me, I don't know why this came to mind, but Rosa Parks, right? So Rosa Parks, okay, I don't think in any moment thought that her refusal to go to the back of the bus was some political statement. I think she was being defiant. And it's funny, it's actually quite similar in terms of the media, right?
Yeah.
She's being defiant, but that moment of being like, fuck you, okay,
it snowballed and it created
a national hero. Yeah. And so, just because she didn't intend for her actions to kind of be calculated and snowballed in this manner, doesn't mean it's any less of a powerful statement. Maybe it's even more.
It's more. I was going to say, not maybe. It makes it more powerful. Yeah. And
it's like
that's how it is with art. And you hear that sometimes with like songwriters, that they have this idea, they start writing the song, and then it starts to take a life of its own. And you hear this constantly with, I don't know if you heard a lot of interviews with Todd and Joaquin, especially with Joaquin and Lawrence, the cinematographer and actor, that they planned to do something, but on set, it just didn't feel right. And they changed it. I don't know if you know, and I can't remember if I mentioned this in the previous episode. Do you know that they shot for 6 days and then they just threw that all away and restarted shooting? I don't think I mentioned that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had the whole thing of when it comes to like color palettes or how Arthur behaves or whatever. So they shot for 6 days, but all three of them didn't feel right. Joaquin, Lawrence, and Todd. It was like something's off. They couldn't even put their finger on it. And Joaquin was like, you know what? Let's just throw everything away. All the footage that we shot, throw it away, and we're going to start from the beginning. And many times they were talking about, okay, so in this scene, we planned to do this, but obviously Joaquin carried the movie, but they followed him. Like, and Joaquin, when he talks about it, he's like, I followed Arthur. Sometimes I felt like to do something else if the plan was to do. So it literally, and that's what I think you feel it, that it has its life of its own when you watch it.
Yeah, and I think some of the scenes are completely improvised, right?
Absolutely.
Like
so when it's in the
fridge.
Yeah. Most of it is improvised. Well, obviously, it's according to the script more or less. But one of the things that they changed, that they couldn't, that they decided to throw everything away, it's the blocking. In filmmaking, blocking, like we're gonna put the camera here, you're gonna sit there, and then you're gonna get up and go. You get a glass from the kitchen. So if that's the scene, we're going to block the camera, the lights, everything with the movement of Arthur in that room. And he was so into that character. So if at the moment he didn't feel like walking that way and he walked in a different way and they didn't set the lights over there correctly and it kind of screwed them up. So they decided to do it theater style, which means we're going to light the whole apartment where no matter where we're going to move with the camera, it's going to be well lit, and they let Arthur go with it. And because of that, Arthur changed lines. He just let, I'm saying Arthur, Joaquin did it, and he just let Arthur take over. And then they just felt like it was flowing like a river. It was just so smooth. Like they all kind of let it, take the life of its own. And another great thing, this Scorsese is known for that. I was so proud to hear that Todd is like that. Todd is the type of a director is like a manager on set, right? They call the shots. The whole crew, how they behave. It's like the manager, the big boss, whatever he says. Todd is the type. Well, he's also Scorsese's fan, so maybe he got it from there. But no, it has to do with personality. He always said it doesn't matter if you're the second AD or if you're even the production assistant who runs to get coffee. Anyone who has great ideas, like when we're between shoots, throw the ideas. Tell us like what you think. So in this one, the whole crew was involved. And Joaquin is saying a nice story when he's talking about the dance with the gun. Remember with the gun where it goes off? That was one of the crew members that he didn't even know. Like they were trying to figure out of him moving, and they were practicing it. And then one of the crew guys like, maybe you should like hold the gun, and that kind of makes him feel better. And he tried it, and that just fit. So when you hear that, like everyone was involved with everything from makeup artists, like they were all involved. It's like that's what I don't know, just mind blowing. Symphony.
This is what's I think so amazing about the movie because of course on some level Joaquin Phoenix is the star of the show, but I never get the impression that this movie is about individuality.
Right.
So it's like you really get this feeling that it's a group effort, and like I mean I'm really happy I didn't hear that before. Like I'm really happy to hear that they had that approach towards ideas that is kind of like bottom up, right? It's not like everything is top down,
and it's so rare in the film industry.
But also, like, and you've mentioned this in your last podcast, and it's so true, is that, like, the minor details, okay? It's, like, the way that the set is done, like, things are, like, there, like, it looked like they've been there for years, like, not that it's been designed in this way, right? Is that, like, whenever, no matter where you look in the movie, you feel like the part is reflecting the whole.
Exactly.
It's, like, wherever, and sometimes what you see, especially with Marvel movies, I think, is like if you look at the big picture, it's like okay, everything's CGI, blah blah blah. But then if you look at like the very minor details, you're like, oh, they didn't really put so much effort there and there.
Always,
like and like here in this movie, it's like you look at the background, you look at the extras, like everyone is in on this.
Everything.
There's that intensity, like it's like that apple is there. Like why is it there in that way? Like it's really like everything is
every detail. One of the things that I don't know, you probably don't do it, many people don't, is pay attention to extras in movies. I always kind of look at it because I was an extra in many movies, and I was assistant extra director. Usually in movies, it's extras, just, people moving around. That's what they do. In this movie, you can tell that each extra that is in the frame was chosen correctly and was directed correctly. And a great example is the bus, with that lady with the kid, where she shows her the card and all that. And then we have like a master shot of the whole bus, and Arthur is like in the back with that laughter. So you have those people, like people churning around with that weird look, like that weirdo, like what the hell is he laughing about? Those subtle things that people don't pay attention to it, but our brains do pay attention to it. We feel like we're in there in the bus, and I so appreciate those things. Like they actually told 3-4 of these extras to make a face and look back. There's another scene like with the whole riots or whatever, when he comes out of the subway when police officers are running in the opposite direction. So when he comes out, there's also a couple of extras, like they walk and they turn around and look at him like, who's that dressed as a Joker? Those things that's what makes it so genuine and real.
So it's that, and you actually, this was probably the thing that I most enjoyed from your last podcast. That interplay between the internal and the external is like a really, really like beautiful part of the movie, and I didn't really notice it while watching the movie, but like you make a very, very good point about the cinematography, which is like you're always seeing this from Arthur's world.
Right.
So you're with Arthur, and then it's kind of
out,
showing you the outside. But the crazy thing is that the outside is kind of reflecting the inside.
Yes.
So whenever it goes out, you haven't kind of lost your frame, that you're seeing it through Arthur's point of view. So like, okay, you're with Arthur, and then you come out. Okay, so what is Arthur seeing right now?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like in a dream, right?
Yeah.
Like this is kind of Inception, right? Whoever you talk to in the dream is actually just your subconscious, right? Like, so, and it's kind of that idea that like these are all could just be like figments of Arthur's imagination around him.
Yeah, and all the garbage bags that I was talking about, in every like master shot that you see the city, there's tons of garbage bags everywhere. Like the city is so filthy, and then it's in the news, and it's all around him. Like garbage is piling up. I think I talked about it. Like that's how they're opening the movie with that in the news in the background. Garbage is piling up. That's his world. It's piling up. It's rising. It's choking him.
Yeah. So that theme, like, so the idea of kind of morality and purity versus dirtiness or whatever it might be on that metaphorical level, I love how they made that literal also.
Right.
Whereas kind of like that toxicity in someone's mental state is also kind of reflected by the environment.
Yes.
And if you don't take care of your environment, so the external and the internal, again, it's that kind of that balance between the two. I mean, I think that for me, when I think about purity, and I always link it with truth. For me, purity and truth are kind of one and the same. And what happened is, as the movie gets kind of literally and metaphorically dirtier and more contaminated, then it gets to a point where your mind is muddled to an extent. So, like, let's say, for example, when we get to the point in the movie where he opens the adoption papers, okay, at that point in the movie, I'm so muddled and skeptical and cynical about everything that I'm seeing.
Right.
I'm like, I actually, I was like, no, but why? What's to stop Thomas Wayne, like Bruce's dad, from forging those papers?
Right.
I mean, she probably did go crazy, but if somebody was like denied,
many people said that actually analyze it that way, that it's all forged and
right
to cover his ass, like and
that's why in this really ironic and counterintuitive sense, Arthur reflects the good. He's like the good guy,
right.
And it's like, this is what happens to a good guy in a corrupt world.
Right.
The good guy is drawn to behaving in this way, and that's kind of like
exactly, totally.
Like, wait, so the Joker is the good guy,
right?
Like,
yeah.
So, I don't know.
Masterpiece.
The absolute masterpiece, and if I can ever watch that movie and be on Arthur's side in his justification for killing Murray, okay, when he says that he deserves it, okay, then I think that like that it will show to me that I have an understanding of that mental state, which I think is lacking for so many people. I think it's so important, and this is why the movie is so insightful and so important for the modern times, is we need to understand
exactly
create someone to get in the state of mind. And this is what mass shootings are. I mean, it's a revenge against the structure of being, but it's more than society. It's actual being. It's the actual life. Okay, like that. Okay, in the last moment, Arthur decided that he wouldn't kill himself. At least that's my interpretation. He decided, no, I should externalize it. Why should I deserve to be punished? Right. But it's kind of like where actually he doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't care if he loses.
Exactly.
He doesn't have. So on the one level, he's completely delusional because he's, a clown killing people, and on the other side, he's not delusional at all.
Right.
He doesn't believe in anything.
Yeah.
He's acting in complete freedom. And that's the scary thing about anarchy, is like that there's definitely a grain of truth in that.
Right, absolutely.
You don't believe anything. There's nothing that's an illusion. And if like you also mentioned this, if Joaquin Phoenix does not win an Oscar for this movie,
the Oscars are done for me.
Yeah, justice has not been served, right?
Hell no. Not only him, I think
what they deserve. The judges of the Oscars.
Yeah, seriously. Deserve. Yeah. Lawrence as well, cinematographer. I think the same thing. He must win an Oscar. If not, they're fucking bullshit. Academy's done.
And I really hope that this is a template and sets the groundwork for maybe not Marvel, maybe they've gone too far. DC have a lot of characters where they can take this far more textured character development, be it Harley Quinn or be it Venom or even Wonder Woman. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do it with any character.
Yeah, and really give it a proper go where it doesn't need to be so loyal to fan fiction per se. It's easier with Joker because Joker, not fan fiction, I mean the comics, because Joker, he says his past is multiple choice, in the comics. Yeah. So you can choose whatever you want. But give the creative license to really let these guys put out a movie which is still cinema, because I'm totally in agreement with Scorsese.
Absolutely. Fuck yeah.
That Marvel is
not cinema.
The superhero movies are superhero movies, and they have their place, and I like superhero movies. I really enjoyed The Avengers, for example, but it is what it is, right?
It's not
Thanos, Thanos is killing half of humanity, and it's in that realm of sci-fi, and I'm not relating to someone snapping their fingers and getting rid of half humanity.
Right. But not only when it comes to hero movies, I think this movie shook Hollywood to the core. And $55 million, no special effects, no CGI, no green screen, just a fucking real story. And I don't know. You probably know that it broke the world record of a rated R movie. It broke the $1 billion mark.
And I have to add something which has not been stated so often when they state that statistic. Without China. Right,
exactly. That does that include China yet? Yeah.
No, China, they censored the movie without it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
And the other thing and I hope that they don't go down this rabbit hole was that the fact that the movie had a slightly limited budget gave them the impetus, I hope, to
push the envelope.
To push the envelope and to be creative.
Yes.
And to kind of think and to kind of make the most of what they have.
Right.
And I think there's a complacency involved when people have these hundreds of millions of dollars of budget. They're you throw some here, you throw some there. And it doesn't ironically it limits the mind.
Absolutely.
When you have an unlimited budget.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's kind of strange, but maybe you put more, if you do have more money, put it into the cast and the crew's pockets.
Right.
Don't put it into the production of the movie.
Exactly.
But yeah, all these guys are going to be, their market value, let's say, has kind of skyrocketed.
Absolutely.
And really
well deserved.
They can get together. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, something that you really got a feeling from this movie is that they have a statement, they have a message that they wanted to convey. They orchestrated this symphony of different aspects in order to create the message. And the best thing about it, which I've been waiting a long time for this feeling, is that I didn't get the impression that the fact that I am buying a movie ticket was the main reason why they created the movie.
Right, exactly.
Okay? The point of the movie was not predominantly to make money. Let's get real. It's part of it. It's a movie. It's entertainment. Okay, but
that wasn't the main goal.
Yeah, the box office is the goal on a structural level, and not kind of the goal in the dollar signs in the eyes of everyone there that let's milk this for all it's worth, right? If they don't think that the sequel of the movie could actually do justice to the first movie, they're not going to milk the franchise. And we did exactly what we want to do, and we're not going to make a second one just because there's a demand for it, and we know that we can thicken our wallets.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, praise and hope to, I don't even know which higher power, that they make a second one of these, because it was.
Oh my God, I so hope so. I think they will. I think they will. They don't admit it, but I think that there is a sequel coming up. It has to be. The movie ended right when the Joker rose. That's where it ended. He got on his feet.
Or it ended, actually, but that was penultimate scene, right? Or it ended that the whole thing was fictional. And
yeah, true.
And it was just the Joker's on us.
Yeah.
So I guess they could take that either way. I think that everyone wants to know what happens to Arthur.
Right.
That's what I find interesting. They don't want to know what happens to Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's the Joker, okay.
Yeah.
But I want to know what happens to Arthur.
Yeah.
And that's the crux and the essence of what Joaquin Phoenix has done with this. And whereas Jared Leto was a sane guy trying to act crazy, it was quite clear that there was something ingrained in Joaquin Phoenix, that like the chaos is kind of in him in some sense. And when he was embodying Arthur's movements and the way that Arthur was, he was not fully disconnected from who Joaquin is as a human. I mean, that's the impression I got, at least. Yeah. And I really hope that this is a groundbreaking watershed moment in Hollywood, where there is still a demand out there for these kind of movies of this level of depth.
Right.
And even if some of the things were unintentional, like you said, the media has played its own part, which is ironic, because the movie itself plays on the idea that the media characterizes things that happen and can kind of create a narrative which is not kind of what the person intends. Modern art, okay, is pretty much the birth of modern art. It's born out of Dadaism, right? And I hope I don't mess up my art history too much, but Dadaism was a movement which was started on a joke. What do I mean? Dadaism was that there was an art fair, I believe in France, and what somebody did was they broke a chair as a joke and entered it into this competition and called the piece of art Anger or something like that, and he won.
Really?
Okay. He won. And this set off this abstract movement where specifically in terms of paintings and art, that the content of the piece is not the priority. The priority is the impact it has on the viewer. So that when you see modern art, the what you see in front of you is just as important, if not less important, than what you as a witness to the art are experiencing. Which I don't like personally, but anyway, that's modern art or contemporary art for you. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, like, whether intentional or unintentional, this movie has demonstrated that cinema is still alive and well.
Yes.
And it was like the dying embers were like, oh no, Hollywood's lost it. It's like, okay, boom, we're back, baby.
Yeah, totally, man. I'm telling you, last 20 years, I'm like, Hollywood's done. It's not. That's it. Finito. And Joker was like you said, fuck, there's still hope. There's still heartbeat there in Hollywood. But real quick, I wanted to mention, when I recorded the Joker episode, the next day or 2 days after, I've seen it for the 5th time. And there was one tiny thing that kept bothering me that I was like, okay, they missed that. And it happens so many times in movies. I hate it. When they show, like, let's say the guy's walking in the jungle and then someone saw him. And when you're asking, like, where's the camera? Like, they see a video of him walking in the jungle. And you're like, but it doesn't make sense. Where are the cameras there? There's no cameras there. Do you know which scenes I'm talking about? There are many scenes that when they see a video of someone and you're like, I don't know if the general public, but me, there were no cameras there. Like how can they see a video? Anyways, in the Joker,
I kind of know what you mean. Like you see it like.
The example in Joker when Murray says, "Oh, this is here's a clip of this funny guy that he thinks he's funny," and I was like, there were no cameras in Pogos in the comedy club there. I didn't see any cameras like filming the comedians. That's the only thing that bugged me. Every time I saw it, I was like, I can't believe they missed it. But lo and behold, the fifth time I saw it, obviously Todd Phillips thought about it and he covered it. Before he goes up the stairs to go to the stage, Arthur is looking at a TV where it's a closed circuit TV, but they're filming the comedian. So there is a camera in the club. And it's in your, like he showed it. And I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the last piece of the puzzle that I needed to make it like perfect.
Now it's perfect.
Yeah. I know it's tiny things, stupid, but I was like, and it's only the fifth time when I saw it, I was like, it's there. There's that piece of the puzzle.
So I also actually the coin dropped for me the second time. I didn't see that I wasn't at your level of inspection. The first time I saw it, I was like, maybe they did that because they were kind of, even though this is kind of in the 80s or whatever, that it was kind of like a reference to modern culture with like viral videos and
right.
Like, sometimes I was like, like that's kind of, I feel like they didn't do that on talk shows, okay? But the second time I saw it, I was thinking like, do you know what? Like this is a comedy club, okay? Like they probably record it, like how specifically the talk show, made contact with this Pogo's comedy club and got the tape. That's kind of like that's its own story, and I don't think they necessarily had that. I feel like you can have a leap of logic.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, it's just the camera. Like, okay, so where did they get the clip of Arthur on that stage? That's what bugged me. Like, I didn't see cameras, and then it's there. They showed it. They have a TV in the dressing room where they shoot the comedians, and I was like, fucking perfect. That's all I needed. Like the whole story behind it. Maybe the manager of Pogo's always has contact with the Murray show, and maybe it's an ongoing thing when they show like not funny comedians and.
Yeah, I mean, I just like kind of last thing I want to ask you about this in the final scene is something which I've not really wrapped my head around. Sorry, not the final scene, the penultimate scene.
Which?
Because the penultimate scene. So the scene with the
therapist.
Murray. No.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you see him kind of doing this whole act where he pretends to be a different guy in making his entrance. He like rehearses his entrance. And then also you see kind of him rehearsing shooting himself after doing the knock knock joke.
Right.
And then that's what I found strangest about it was like even the moment when he kind of gets into his Joker and he does the most charismatic entrance and he kisses the doctor and sits down. I was like, this is so like, and now I felt like I was in a dream. I was like, what's happened? Like he had this whole plan to do this thing, and now it's like, is he not? Is this because he's not Arthur anymore? Like that was something that really bugged me. And the funny thing was that after I watched the movie, okay, and I was really thinking about that. I fell asleep, and when you have where you wake up in your own dream and you know that you're in a dream, right?
Right.
So lucid dreaming or whatever, okay. I had the weirdest inception of lucid dreaming I've ever had. And it made me question reality to this day, that maybe you're just a figment of my imagination, like, and I'm in a dream. It happened to me. So I was in the dream, and I'm like, okay, I'm in a dream. So I woke myself up, okay? And I was like looking around, like, kind of doing my thing, like getting up, like, okay. And then I realized again I was in a dream. I was like, oh, okay. Again, woke myself up, third time, literally brushed my teeth, took a shower, like had breakfast, okay? And then I was looking, I was like, this is a dream. And I woke myself up a fourth time, okay, Joe? for like half an hour, I'm walking around my apartment, and I'm like, I don't know
if I'm dreaming.
It was the weirdest sensation. I went through the whole day, like kind of looking at everything. Like probably people were like, why is he looking at me so strangely? Okay, it was a really, really weird experience.
You had a glitch in the Matrix.
Okay, I swear to God, glitch in the Matrix. Like, and okay, like now I'm kind of over it to an extent, but like there is something about the level of detail that you can have when you're in a dream, which is so real that when you're not in a dream, in theory, when you're not in a dream, I hope I'm not in a dream right now. Okay, when you're not in a dream, there isn't necessarily something that can happen in reality which cannot be repeated or recreated in a dream, which is a really, really strange thought because I've never had that level of detail in a dream before. Like it was really, I was awake for like 20 minutes and it wasn't like something unique with dragons and dinosaurs.
Right.
Just brushing my teeth, taking a shower, like having breakfast, just like doing my thing, and I was just like. I was like, whoa, like
Adam, Adam, you should cut down with the crack. It's the acid, man. You should cut down with the acid. Yep.
Yeah. Well, no promises there, Joe. But
cool.
Yes.
But
okay,
we're wrapping it up.
Yes, sir. I'm actually, just before we go, I'm so excited to hear you interviewing another Earthling.
I know, me too. I'm so like, yeah, I'm gonna say it. Like, I'm nervous. I'm not gonna act like I'm not. Yeah.
Just imagine you're in a dream, Joe.
You're right.
No, I think, I mean, I think that because on some level, we've kind of, it's been like. Planet Joe has been kind of in its own bubble, and I've been really happy to be along for the show, and you've kind of had this almost introspective journey along, and I've been happy to give the feedback along the way. And I feel like this is the first time that someone who's not necessarily been part of the journey from the beginning is really coming to visit, and it's like, all right,
it's getting real. Now that's what I feel. Right, exactly.
The planet's defenses.
Yeah.
Set up the anti-missile systems and all that, the force field.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And did we talk about it off air or on air when I said I'm thinking of literally sending Lawrence an email to see maybe he'll give me a few minutes of his time. Did we?
No, you said
we were on air.
You mentioned it. Yeah. You
okay.
did,
So I don't know. I'm seriously thinking maybe. I don't know. Look him up, LinkedIn or something. And have you seen him in interviews?
I have.
He's so humble.
Not him individually. I've seen like all of them kind of on a panel together.
Okay.
But if I were you, I'd just record a 1-minute video or 30 seconds even, which is something which you could kind of just send along with the email, just saying kind of who you are. And I feel like sometimes that can personalize the message a bit more than just kind of the words of an email.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of just give a little bit of background and say, you can, and that way it's kind of more personable. It's kind of, you kind of humanize a message on some level and they can see who you are.
That's a great idea, I think. It's a great idea. Yeah, because I've seen him on three interviews that he did on really considerably small YouTube channels, and he's so dedicated in answering questions. He was in the studio; it wasn't even over the phone in LA. And I was like, he's such a great guy. He's so cool. He's so humble and so. I was like, you know what? If he's on that channel, I don't know how many, couple thousand viewers that they have, and he's there. And I was like, maybe I should try.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. Yeah.
Like we said before, right? You don't shoot, you don't score.
Exactly.
It doesn't reply to the first email. He'll reply to the 27th one.
Right.
So.
And then he'll agree, and it'll be like the Joker episode. It'll be like, masterpiece, Lawrence. Sure. Very good. Nice.
Exactly. Like, yeah,
Out of
maybe he'll
words.
just like give you the interview just so that you'll stop bugging him.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, this guy sends me this bloody mess, like, email like once a week for the past like 6 months. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, persistence pays off.
Yeah.
Right? There's that Michael Jordan quote, right? Like, I've missed this and all that, and I failed, and that's why I succeed.
Right.
Yes.
I'll give it a shot for sure. But yeah, anyways, my peeps, hope you enjoyed I don't know, Adam's good with titling. What do you think the title of this episode should be? Joker 2? Joker the sequel. That's a clickbaity.
Joker afterward.
Afterwards.
The after joke.
Right. The after joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Second
the punchline
analysis. Still waiting for the punchline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I do my best thinking in the shower, so I'll let you know.
Let me know. And
yeah,
and I'll definitely put in the show notes, and I'll remember. Well, you probably heard it because if you're listening, it's been recorded. That the spoiler alert. I got to remember to put it in the opening.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. Like we're 30 minutes in. Spoiler alert, by the way.
You know, I always just this is a really random comment, but whenever like my friends go on a blind date, okay, and they say they want to see like the person's like Facebook profile, I was like, spoiler alert. Like, you don't want to see that. Like, or like they're like looking for the bikini photos. I'm like, you don't want that spoiler alert. Like, don't you want any mystery there? Like, it's like no, like show you've got a naked photo. I want to see that too. Like, spoiler alert. Anyway, yeah. Sorry if that ruined the movie for anyone, but I'm sure that I know you got the intro. Yeah,
I got the intro. I'm gonna cover it. So yeah, I guess that's a wrap, my peeps. Adam, thank you, my brother, and I'm glad we did this and it worked out. That means we're gonna do it more often.
Yeah, with pleasure. Actually, this was actually very convenient. I'm happy this was.
I know, yeah, me too. It's
so pragmatic.
I admit less setup for me too, for the thing. Just plug it in, record, we're good to go. So yeah. So yeah, hopefully you guys are used to Adam by now. He's a part of the PJP. No escape, my friend. Thanks to technology.
My voice has been eternalized on PJP.
Yeah, so you guys already know, I think, most likely the next pod what's going to be. I'm not going to give much details because I still didn't break down the questions of what we're going to be talking about, but stay tuned. Anyways, Adam, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you, as always. My peeps, thank you very much for listening, and don't forget to follow, like, share, and say something. You know what? Real quick before I go, I'm in those Facebook groups of podcasters and podcasting production groups online and whatnot, and everybody says some people that have like 5,000 listeners and they still don't hear anything from their listeners. And one of them yesterday I read this. He wrote a whole thing about it, and I kind of knew it, but I didn't think about it. It's like, you guys are talking about like getting reviews and all that, but even if you look at Joe Rogan, where he has like 6 million listeners, the ratio for reviews are so little because the majority of people that listen to podcasts are either driving or working out or on their bicycle. It's not like YouTube where you're online and you can just write a review right there and then. So yeah, that's something that I was kind of like bummed out from, that I'm not hearing from the audience, but now I can put 2 and 2 together. So don't say anything. It's okay. I know you're there, peeps.
the peace and love, your love is just by default.
Yeah.
Passive love.
The downloads, that's the love, to see the downloads increase every month. And I was happy to see that the Joker, it was like a boost of encouragement from the listeners. I thought it was the worst one, and it's first the one that took the lead. All right, we're done. Adam, thanks. Till next time. And again, thank you guys, and we will see you next time on PJP. Peace out.